315 takes place this weekend, and in this video I'm going to be giving you my exact predictions for how I think every fight on the card is going to play out. So without further ado, let's get into the picks. As always, I like to look at my past week's performance to see what we can improve upon, and honestly last week did pretty well. I apologize, it's not really centered, but it makes sense for later in the video. So, Sandhagen, great pick. Bo Nickel, you've probably seen a million YouTube videos about that by now. Nickel just went out there and quit against RDR, so there's that. First sign of adversity, Bo Nickel crumbles. Crazy stuff, minus 350, favorite, can't hit. Alright, Gaston Bolaños, another wrong pick. He was the favorite as well, minus 150. I can't catch a break picking favorites, it seems. Kang Lee clearly absorbed more strikes when it stayed standing. Gaston Bolaños nearly knocked the guy out when it was standing, but Kang Lee just had suffocating pressure on the ground. Didn't think he was going to turn into the Asian version of Habib. So there's that. Then Dontel Mays, I thought Thomas Peterson wasn't going to have success with takedowns. Turns out he got him every chance that he wanted. So Dontel Mays, bad pick. Never again. Ivana Petrovic, I just thought Juliana Miller wasn't UFC level. Turns out I'm correct. She is not UFC level, but the thing is, Ivana Petrovic is probably not UFC level either. You know, a finish win over Liang Na, that's good and all, but if you go out there and lose a clean decision to Juliana Miller, you might have to rethink your career path, or you might need to spend a year or two in Dagestan and forget, if you know what I'm trying to say. So, pretty decent picks, 8-4 with a lot of underdogs winning. You know, Yana Santos won, Sergey City in a closely line fight won. Let's see, Daniel Rodriguez won. Yeah, pretty good underdog picks. So, let's see if we can replicate some success at UFC 315. We're chasing the sweep. First fight on the card is Daniel Santos taking on Jung Young Lee, and I just think the line is absurdly off in this fight. I think Jung Young Lee is a very well-rounded fighter. He's very calculated on the feet. He doesn't like when there's a lot of pressure in his face, as seen, you know, against Hyder Emil. Hyder Emil just went out there and just threw a flurry of punches until Jung Young Lee couldn't handle it anymore. I'm pretty sure the strikes were like 44-4. I think that's an outlier. I don't think that's going to happen every time Jung Young Lee fights. Like, when he fights a pressure fighter, it might be a problem. But the thing is, Daniel Santos, he is a pressure fighter, at a shudo box, but he hasn't really proven himself, in my opinion. All right, he does have like a flying knee KO on John Castaneda, but if you analyze the fight footage, he fights like a typical shudo box Brazilian guy. You know, he's very wild. He's throwing all types of crazy stuff. And as the rounds progress, his gas tank starts to slow down a little bit. I just tend to think that Jung Young Lee is the more technical fighter. He hasn't fought in nearly 2 years, and he's had 3 canceled fights in his last 3 fights, all because he pulled out due to some type of weight cut issue, due to some type of medical reason. Now he's taking this fight on 1 week's notice. Usually he fights at bantamweight, as you can see, but he's taken this up a weight class at featherweight, so I think that actually favors Jung Young Lee. He's going to be the bigger fighter in a fight that I can see being pushed up against the cage. Jung Young Lee has only really looked bad against Hyder Emil, and that's because Hyder Emil just gave him all he could handle and just went up in his face and pressured him for the whole fight. Daniel Santos, up a weight class, I think he'll have some cardio issues now. He already had cardio issues, but now up a weight class, I think it's going to be even worse. I think if Daniel Santos tries to go for takedowns, he's going to gas even faster. So Jung Young Lee, I just think, is better in every department of MMA other than pure power, pure force. And I think in this matchup, he's going to be able to use his veteran savvy and go out there and win a clean decision. He has the 6-inch reach advantage, 3-inch height advantage. So go out there and do your thing, Jung Young Lee, by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Modestas Bukauskas taking on Jan Cutelaba. And I was going back and forth on this. Alright, so on one hand, if Jan Cutelaba utilizes the game plan of takedown, I think it will work. Modestas Bukauskas hasn't shown the best takedown defense. Takedown defense for Bukauskas is not that good. So when he's fighting someone that can take him down, he's more often than not going to probably lose. But the thing about Jan Cutelaba is when he actually goes for takedowns, his cardio tends to go out the window. Whenever he, game plan is takedown first, he gasses out, and I'm a little concerned because Modestas hasn't really shown gassing issues. Modestas has really shown volume issues. He's not really a volume striker. He does have some power in his hands, but his chin is also made of glass at this point, so I'm not really seeing the path to victory for Modestas Bukauskas. Now, if we dive a little deeper into Modestas Bukauskas, you'll see that his wins are really only against people that are not UFC level. You know, Rafael Cerqueira, worst fighter I've ever seen fight in the UFC. Marcin Prachnio had no takedowns at his disposal, doubled up Modestas on strikes, and lost by a round 3 sub because Modestas finally decided to go all in on takedowns. That's not going to be a path to victory against Cutelaba, I don't think. Vitor Petrino knocks him out in round 2 with a punch. Vitor Petrino's not really knocking anyone out on the feet like that. Zach Pauga outlands him and gets a takedown. Modestas ends up winning the decision on power, but Tyson Pedro, 2 takedowns. Should have probably lost to Tyson Pedro there as well. Khalil Roundtree, oblique kick knockout. Miguel Oleksiejczuk wins a clean split decision. Jimmy Crute knocks this guy out on the feet. 2 knockdowns by Jimmy Crute. I mean, I'm not really sure how you can trust Modestas to win in the UFC, number one. Number two, against a guy like Jan Cutelaba, I'm not really sure you can trust him to win either. I mean, Jan Cutelaba showed against Erslan, he can go for takedowns, and his jiu-jitsu is good enough to get submissions now. Against Ivan Erslan, he was wobbling Erslan on the feet. He went to the takedowns. He's good. He's doing better game plans now. Jan Cutelaba is. All right, he does have losses over Ryan Spann, Johnny Walker, Kennedy Nzechukwu, but I would argue all those guys are like mainstays of the top 15 if we're being honest. And Felipe Lins, that was the one fight that I was like, maybe Modestas could win here. Modestas does have a longer reach and he is taller, but against Felipe Lins, I just think Felipe Lins is actually pretty well-rounded and pretty good. You know, if you look at Felipe Lins' resume, Maxim Grisham, Oven St. Peru, Marcin Prachnau, he's kind of on a little bit of a run against UFC level guys. But you look at Modestas Bukauskas, he's on a 2-fight winning streak against 2 guys that are no longer signed by the UFC. So ultimately, I think if we're gonna bring it all back together, I think that Jan Cutelaba wins by round 2 KO. Next fight on the card, we have Navajo Stirling taking on Ivan Erslan, and I was tempted to take Ivan Erslan, but the more I look into it, the more I'm like, because Ivan Erslan against Jan Cutelaba, not once did I see him offensively wrestle. If you look at the tail of the tape, look at what happened, you will see that Ivan Erslan controlled Jan Cutelaba for nearly the entire 3rd round. But I would argue that Cutelaba, number one, was very gassed. Cutelaba himself was going for takedowns the whole fight, so he got reversed on one and just got controlled in the ground for the whole time. Ivan Erslan, if you look over his tape, he's not really offensively wrestling in any of those fights. He's going to be at a 7-inch reach disadvantage here, 2-inch height disadvantage, and it's not like Ivan Erslan's like a mainstay of the UFC. You know, if Navajo Stirling loses, this is a horrific fraud check. He is 6-0. Undefeated fighters aren't doing well in 2025, but Navajo's striking is very good. He throws with volume. He throws with power. The only problem is his takedown defense is a hole in his game. You know, Toko Tukos was able to take this guy down multiple times and control him for nearly 5 full minutes, and Toko Tukos took him to a decision. Ivan Erslan, though, about to turn 34 years old, 6-year age gap. If you look over his history, he got cold-cocked by this guy, Rafael Haratik. If you watch back that fight, Radtke just landed a clean right hand and just put Ivan Erslan down. I think with Navajo, with his long reach advantage, I think he's going to be able to do the same thing. I think Navajo can even utilize offensive wrestling of his own. Size discrepancy is going to be humongous in this fight. I was leaning Ivan because I saw that he trained at American Top Team. You know, potentially could have some wrestling in his back pocket, but he's not training at the American Top Team that we know, like the one in America in Vegas, but he's training at the one in Croatia. So if you look at who's there, it's not really high-level wrestlers. So for all those reasons, I would only take a high-level wrestler against Navajo, but Erslan is not that. So give me Navajo Stirling by round 1 KO. Next fight on the card, we have Jessica Andrade taking on Jasmine Jasudavicius, and very simple to break down. If this fight stays standing, Jessica Andrade is going to win every minute standing, and if this fight hits the ground, Jasudavicius is going to win every minute that's on the ground. So it basically comes down to, do you think Jasmine will get the takedowns? I think so. I think she will. I think she'll get him every single round. I think she's going to get loads of control time. I think she can low-key even find the finish. You know, her ground and pound is similar to Jillian Robertson. She reminds me very much of her. They're very active on the ground. They're always chasing a sub. They're always chasing a finish with elbows. And I think the same thing is going to play out here. I mean, if Jessica Andrade is getting taken down multiple times by Valentina Shevchenko, years ago when Shevchenko wasn't really a true wrestler, it's a cause for concern. Tatiana Suarez was able to take her down very easily. You know, Erin Blanchfield was able to take her down very easily in fights where it was kind of 50-50. Can they take her down? Can they not take her down? Well, we found out very quickly that she was able to just get taken down. I'm not really liking Jessica's chances here. She actually does have a 3-year age advantage, which is crazy. She's 26-13, meanwhile Jasmine's 13-3, and Jessica is younger by 3 years. That's kind of nuts. But ultimately speaking, on the feet, Jessica wins. On the ground, Jasmine wins. I just tend to think Jasmine gets it to the ground, and the fight takes place more on the ground than it does on the feet. So for all those reasons, Jasmine Jasudavicius by decision. Next fight on the card is Charles Radtke taking on Mike Malott. I'm going with Charles Radtke. All right. I just changed it right now, but the more I look into it, the more tape I watch of Mike Malott, the more I just tend to not think that he's durable. I just think that any sign of of offense coming his way, he just tends to crumble, all right? So if we look over his stats, we can go fight by fight here, band for band. Against Trevin Giles, he was coming off the Neil Magny TKO loss, so he was very trepidatious about going all in on grappling. Mike Malott's success has been mainly because he's been going to takedowns and getting grappling done. He was able to get a knockout on Mickey Gall, but, you know, that's Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall is chinless at this point, so I wouldn't say that's a big accomplishment. He got a knockdown on Adam Fugit, but Adam Fugit is also chinless at this point, so I wouldn't say that's an accomplishment either. You can also see that he ended up reverting to takedowns against Fugit. Neil Magny was the first guy he fought that was firing back at him. And Mike Malott won the first 2 rounds clean, but when Neil Magny actually started hitting him and hurting him, Mike Malott didn't really show that he can deal with adversity well. You look at Charles Radtke. Charles Radtke is out here starching people, all right? Blood Diamond, yes, he might have held up against the cage, sure. But Gilbert Urbina knocked him down twice, clean in the first round, see ya. Matthew Semmelsberger knocked him out in the first exchange, see ya. Carlos Prates, sure, that's Carlos Prates, though. Carlos Prates, a loss to him is not the worst thing in the world, but I just tend to think that when Mike Malott is dealing with pressure, he lost the first round clean against Trevin Giles. Trevin Giles landed like a clean right hand and bloodied up Mike Malott's face, and that kind of turned Mike Malott into a leg kicker for the rest of the fight. So I tend to think that Mike Malott does not deal well with pressure, and I don't really know what his path to victory here would be other than shoot for takedowns. The problem is when he does that and doesn't find the finish, he gasses out. If he were to stay standing with Radtke, I think eventually Radtke will hit him with something that he does not like, and that'll make him be way more trepidatious to throw on the feet. So either way, I think Radtke can knock out Mike Malott, you know, via TKO, via like he hits him with a big shot, big body shot, and Mike Malott crumbles. I think Radtke can even do takedowns and control Mike Malott on his own, but I just think Radtke has more finishing ability, and Malott tends to crumble under pressure. So for those reasons, give me Charles Radtke by round 2 KO. Next fight on the card, we have Marc-André Barriault taking on Bruno Silva. Both guys are on 3+ fight losing streaks. You know, for Bruno Silva, we can break down each of Bruno Silva's losses. Not the worst losses, okay? Ismail Nurdayev just took him down for 3 rounds. So there's that. Chris Weidman, I poked him to a KO victory. He was losing on the feet, sure, but he got eye poked repeatedly. I mean, I would probably lose a striking match if I'm just getting eye poked every single time. So I'll cut him some slack for that as well. Shower Bullet, he is actually having success taking down Shower Bullet. I don't know how he lost 30-27 when the 3rd round he controlled Shower for 4+ minutes, but and then against Brendan Allen just got taken down and rear naked choked. I've yet to see Bruno Silva lose a clean striking battle, power for power, over the course of 3 rounds. Chris Weidman was, you know, kind of winning that fight, but in reality, Bruno Silva was landing the bigger shots. Alex Pereira, you know, Alex Pereira beat him in a clean decision, but Bruno Silva was, you know, hitting Pereira with some big shots as well at some points in that fight. And I think if he were to hit Marc-André Barriault with a big shot early, I think he's going to turn the lights off. I mean, Brad Tavares doesn't really get knocked out by many people, and Bruno Silva knocked him out very quickly. Bruno Silva, 20 of his 23 wins are by knockout. Marc-André Barriault got knocked out by Dustin Stoltzfus from a right hook. That's a normal punch. It wasn't like a spinning back elbow. It was a right hook to ground strikes. Like, Bruno Silva can easily do that. They're both going to be the same size, same reach, 74-inch reach for both of them. Andrade also got knocked out by Joe Pyfer. Overhand right slept him. Both knockouts took place in the last 12 months. 6 months ago, 10 months ago. I don't know how you can trust this guy's chin at this point. He used to be a big volume guy. He used to be a big, you know, hold you against the cage guy. But nowadays, the bigger cage, I don't know if that's going to be super successful against Bruno Silva. I think if anyone has success with takedowns, it'll be Bruno Silva. Age is not really a factor. They're both 35 years old. I'm just going to go with the guy that's been chinned less, and that's Bruno Silva. And I'm going to go with the guy that has more power, which is also Bruno Silva. And I'm going to go with the guy that has takedowns at his disposal, which is also Bruno Silva. So for all those reasons, give me Bruno Silva by round 1 KO. Next fight on the card, we have Brad Katona taking on Bekzat Almakhan, and I'm just refusing to pick Bekzat Almakhan. He's coming off of a loss to Umar Nurmagomedov, which was his only fight in the UFC, and in that fight, he clipped Umar in the first minute, and then was controlled on the ground for 14 straight minutes. If you look over his regional footage, yeah, he's a big finisher for bantamweight. I'm pretty sure like 80% of his 11 MMA wins are by finish. Brad Katona, decision merchant. 10 of his 14 wins are by decision. So you would think that the high finisher against the high decisioner, the high finisher is going to win. He's probably going to finish Brad Katona. But Brad Katona, if you look at his losses, Gene Matsumoto, he gave Gene Matsumoto a run for his money in that fight, nearly matching him in over 100 significant strikes. You look at his loss to Garrett Armfield. He probably should have beaten Garrett Armfield. Garrett Armfield, he outlanded him. He got takedowns on Garrett Armfield. And then you look at his other fights, he's just good at winning decisions. He's like the bantamweight Bilal Muhammad. Not a lot of finishing ability, but he's very smart in the cage. And I think against an untested guy like Bekzat Almakhan, Brad Katona is just going to do what Brad Katona does, which is win by decision. I'm seeing a majority of people pick Bekzat to win by decision, but I just think that's foolish. I think if Bekzat wins, it's inside the distance. He clips Brad with something big. You know, usually Brad Katona, the main problem he has is that his reach of 64.5 is usually like 10 plus inches short. But against Bekzat Almakhan, it's only 3.5 inches of reach disadvantage. So he's not going to be super far away from Bekzat. I think he's going to put a pace on Bekzat. I think he's going to out-volume Bekzat. I think he can mix in takedowns because clearly that was a big hole in Bekzat's game against Umar. So I'm taking Brad Katona to just win a clean decision. Next fight on the card, we have Jose Aldo taking on Aiemann Zahabi, and all the outside factors would make you think that Jose Aldo wins. If you look over at Jose Aldo's recent fight history, you can see that there's a certain way to beat him, okay? Mario Batista loses in strikes, but he just holds Jose Aldo against the cage, wins a decision. Merab Dvalishvili holds Jose Aldo against the cage, wins a decision. Peter Yan doubles up Jose Aldo on strikes, wins by round 5 TKO. Marlon Moraes gets the takedown, holds Jose Aldo against the cage, wins a decision. We look at who Jose Aldo has beaten: Jonathan Martinez, who's really a leg kick merchant, Rob Font, who's a jab merchant, Joe Munoz, who's a leg kick merchant, and Marlon Vera, who throws with no volume. Is Aiemann Zahabi any of those things? Well, let's look. He's on a recent career resurgence. He has knockout power, which is unlike most of the people Jose Aldo has fought. Not one of these guys, I would think, has like one-shot KO power. Aiemann Zahabi, on the other hand, he has some big power in his hands. All right, he beat Pedro Munoz with significant strikes, which doesn't really happen often to Pedro Munoz. He outlanded Javid Bashra, didn't surrender a single takedown. Was able to fraud check Javid. He knocked out Arichi Lang, which I'm pretty sure that's Arichi Lang's only UFC knockout loss. He doubled up Ricky Tercios on strikes. He was getting Ricky scared to throw. Ricky didn't even shoot a takedown. They just had 54-27 in a 3-round, 15-minute fight. Draco Rodriguez knocks him out in the first round. His brother is Faraz Zahabi, one of the best coaches in MMA. So I think if we take all those factors, we're going to know that this fight's going to stay standing. But if someone's going to shoot takedowns, I have the hot take that actually Aiemann Zahabi will try to shoot takedowns. All right? He doesn't really do it often or ever. But I think with his brother being Faraz Zahabi, being an excellent MMA coach, I think the game plan to beat Jose Aldo is to hold him against the cage, tire him out, avoid the big leg kicks, and potentially try to find the chin of Jose Aldo. You know, Jose Aldo, one of his big factors that make him a great fighter is his durability, but now that he's about to turn 39 in the bantamweight division, his durability might be going out the window at a certain point. And Jose Aldo at minus 230, there's no chance you'll ever see me with a Jose Aldo minus 230 ticket. So, all those reasons, if it stays standing, I think it's a 50-50 coin flip with Zahabi having actually more power in his hands than Aldo. And I think if we were to get to the grappling and wrestling, if anyone's initiating it, I actually think Zahabi will do it based on the game plan, based on how Aldo has lost his recent fights. It will be smart to hit Aldo with something big and then try to initiate a takedown. So for all those reasons, I think there's just a little more there. I think this fight should be like a coin flip pick'em, but I'm taking Aiemann Zahabi as the big underdog to win by decision. Next fight on the card is Alexa Grasso taking on Natalia Silva. And I'm not going to bore you too much with this breakdown. I don't think Alexa Grasso is that good. She does have good, crisp boxing, but if she's going to fight a fighter that is just a better striker overall, she's going to lose. She does shoot for takedowns, but they're not the best. It's mainly a timing thing with her takedowns. She doesn't just shoot for them relentlessly. She more tries to time them. Natalia Silva is a big leg kicker, so maybe Grasso can catch a leg and get a takedown off that. But Grasso is able to beat Jasmine Jasudavicius pretty clean, without any takedown threat. She beat Teresa Bleda, who was coming down from featherweight, who's a wrestler, and she knocked her out. You know, she beat Viviana Wadro. She beat Jessica Andrade. Like, she's already proven that she belongs in the upper echelon of the women's flyweight division. There's no fraud check loading. So at this point, I think she's on her way to the title shot, and Alexa Grasso just happens to be in her way. Alexa Grasso's had her time with the title. I think now is time that she's going to fall back down the ladder, back down the mountain. She's going to probably have to fight a couple more ranked fights to even get close to a title picture again. I don't think this is a favorable matchup. I think Natalia Silva is just going to dance around the cage, pepper up Grasso from afar. Grasso needs the fight to stay close in order to win because she's a boxing merchant. She's a clinch merchant. She likes the fights to stay close. Silva likes the fights to stay at a distance. So I just tend to think that Silva, who's 3 years younger, a little smaller, I think she will utilize her game plan better than Grasso will utilize hers. So for all those reasons, give me Natalia Silva by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Valentina Shevchenko taking on Manon Fiorot. And I was going back and forth on this fight. On one hand, if this were to stay standing for 5 rounds, do you guys think that Manon Fiorot would just win all 5 rounds? I tend to think no. I tend to think that Shevchenko actually will do enough on the feet to make this competitive on the feet. The difference is Shevchenko actually has wrestling and grappling that she can go to win this fight as well. Manon Fiorot has shown that she has excellent takedown defense. She barely surrendered a takedown against Erin Blanchfield in their 5-round fight. But Shevchenko's takedowns are more, she's an opportunist. You know, she has opportunist type takedowns. She might be 37 years old, but Manon Fiorot is 35. So it's not like it's 37 versus 28. It's 37 versus 35. I'm getting the seasoned vet. I'm getting the multiple-time champion at plus money who has wrestling to go to. Manon Fiorot has no wrestling. She has power in her hands, sure, but she's not knocking out Shevchenko. Shevchenko's only losses, really, recently, are against people that are going to out-grapple her. Talia Santos have won that fight, and that was because she nearly out-grappled Shevchenko. Alexa Grasso's only win against her was because she out-grappled Shevchenko. In the draw, it became a draw because Grasso out-grappled Shevchenko. The thing is, I don't think Manon Fiorot has the ability to out-grapple Shevchenko. I've yet to see Manon Fiorot actively grapple, so it is a big question mark what's going to happen. But knowing that Fiorot comes from a striking kickboxing background from France, I sincerely doubt that she's going to be the better grappler than Shevchenko. Shevchenko just took down Grasso 8 times at the Sphere. She took Grasso down 4 times in the fight before that. And the fight before that, she also took her down 4 times. She's been utilizing the game plan more and more. She knows how to go out there and win fights at this point. She's the multiple-time champ. So for all those reasons, I think Shevchenko is going to do whatever she needs to do to win this fight. And I think she can get takedowns, and I think she can keep it close enough on the feet to win by decision. Brings us to the main event of UFC 315. Belal Muhammad taking on Della Maddalena. And this is a very hard fight to predict, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to have to pull out the stats for this one. We look at how Belal has been winning. Alright, so against Leon Edwards, we know, low volume striker. Belal took him down 9 times, 1 clean. Gilbert Burns sprained his shoulder in the first round. Somehow still almost matched Belal in strikes. Sean Brady couldn't get takedowns. Turns out he has no hands. Belal knocks him out on the feet. Vicente Luque, he gets 5 takedowns. Wonderboy, he gets 7 takedowns. Damian Maia, he avoids the subs, gets more significant strikes. Belal just knows how to win fights. Alright? If we look at Della Maddalena, he's also undefeated in the UFC, but Gilbert Burns, he lost 2 clean rounds to him before getting him with a crazy knockout with a knee into elbows at the end. Kevin Holland, that was just a weird sparring fight, for being honest. Basil Hafez was a short notice, and he also tripled him on strikes. This is tough. Randy Brown knocks him out in the first round and then gets a rear naked choke. Gets multiple knockdowns on Danny Roberts, knocks down Ramazan Ameev, knocks down Pete Rodriguez. The Ange Luciv fight is interesting. because Andalusa actually tried to offensively wrestle. JDM was in a deep arm triangle in that fight, but oh man, this is just a tough fight to predict if we're being honest. I mean, it's just a coin flip, really. It's like, can Belal just do the game plan for 5 rounds like he usually does? Belal is a favorite for the first time, and I think ever. I've never seen Belal at minus money, especially at this high, minus 260, against a guy that has heat in his hands, against a guy that is extremely well-rounded, has submissions in his game plan, and a guy that can potentially out-volume Belal himself. I'm not sure. Oh, man. I have JDM KO round 3 pegged, but I'm like tempted to just pick Belal's decision and just call it a day. I'm going to stick with my gut, and my gut is telling me we're going to see something crazy happen Saturday night, and I think this fight is going to end by finish. Now, who's getting the finish? That's a question. That's a good question. Belal can get the finish on the ground, low-key. But, man, I think the smart money is on JDM, so I'm going to take Della Maddalena in this one. By round 3, KO. Thank you for getting to the end of the episode of Finn's Chats. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know in the comments who you got this weekend. Give me your full slate of fight picks. Just drop them down below. Also, if you don't want to do that, just let me know who your favorite underdog is. There's a ton of underdogs barking this week. I picked a ton in this video to the point where I'm getting scared. I'm getting very scared. There's no way this many underdogs are going to win. But I just couldn't help myself. So, leave a like, subscribe, and have a great rest of your day. You savage.